It is the largest body of inland water on Earth, 371,000 square kilometers, bigger than Germany, bigger than Japan, larger than the next 6 lakes combined. It holds 78,200 cubic kilometers of water, roughly 40% of all the lake water on the planet. It is a lake. It is also, by treaty, a sea. The distinction has not been settled in 200 years. 5 countries border it. Each has, at various points, claimed a different portion as sovereign. Each has, at various points, deployed submarines and missile platforms onto it. In 2018, after 22 years of negotiation, those 5 countries signed a convention declaring its legal status to be neither lake nor sea, but a special legal status, a category invented for it alone. The water level has fallen by approximately 1.5 meters since the mid-1990s. By some measurements, since the early 2000s, the rate of decline has accelerated. The most recent projections, published by researchers at the University of Bremen and other institutions in 2023, indicate that the southern portion of the basin may lose between 9 and 18 meters of water level by the year 2100, depending on emission scenarios. The northern shallows, the part where the sturgeon spawn, may, by some models, be dry by mid-century. The fish that gave the Caspian its name, in commerce and cuisine, are nearly gone. The beluga sturgeon, huso, which lived for up to 100 years and reached weights exceeding a ton, has declined by more than 90% in wild stocks since the 1980s. The legal trade in wild Caspian caviar effectively ended in 2010. The illegal trade did not. Along its shores, in the long arc from Astrakhan to Anzali, sit the remains of one of the most militarized inland waterways of the 20th century. Soviet submarine bases, Iranian naval shipyards, Russian missile installations, Kazakh oil platforms. Azerbaijani drilling rigs older than the country that owns them. This is the story of the largest inland body of water on the planet, the 5 countries that cannot decide what it is, and the slow, measurable disappearance that has begun to make the question urgent. The Caspian Sea lies between Europe and Asia, at the meeting point of the Caucasus and Central Asia. Its northern shore is in Russia. Its eastern shore is in Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. Its southern shore is in Iran. Its western shore is in Azerbaijan. It runs 1,200 kilometers from north to south. It is, on average, 320 kilometers wide. Its surface sits 28 meters below global sea level. The bed reaches at its deepest point in the south 1,025 meters below the surface, meaning the Caspian's floor is over a kilometer below the level of the world's oceans. The basin is enclosed. It has no outflow. Every river that empties into it, and they are major rivers, including the Volga, the Ural, the Kura, the Terek, and the Atrek, ends here. The water leaves only by evaporation. This evaporation, by some measures of total mass, is the largest sustained loss of freshwater-fed water to atmosphere on Earth. Roughly 1,000 cubic kilometers of water evaporates from the Caspian surface each year. In equilibrium, river inflow replaces it. In a warming, drying climate, inflow does not. The salinity is roughly a third that of the world's oceans, around 12 parts per thousand on average, fresher in the north, where the Volga delivers its volume, saltier in the southeast, where the water reaches its highest mineral concentrations. The salinity is the reason the Caspian was, in older geological eras, called a sea. The lack of any outflow is the reason it is, in technical hydrological terms, a lake. The 2018 convention chose neither. The reason for this hesitation is law. If the Caspian is a sea, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, applies. Each coastal state would receive a 12 nautical mile territorial zone and a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, with international waters in between. If the Caspian is a lake, no UN convention applies. The 5 coastal states would, by international precedent, divide it equally, with each receiving 1/5. The difference is not academic. The Caspian sits atop one of the world's largest reserves of hydrocarbons. The U.S. Energy Information Administration has estimated proved and probable reserves at approximately 48 billion barrels of oil and 292 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. The largest deposits are concentrated in particular sections of the seabed. The Kashagan field, off Kazakhstan, is one of the largest oil discoveries of the past 50 years. The Shah Deniz field, off Azerbaijan, holds an estimated 1.2 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. The wealth of any single coastal state depends in a measurable way on where the boundaries are drawn. Until 1991, the question had a simple answer. Two countries bordered the Caspian, the Soviet Union and Iran. A pair of treaties signed in 1921 and 1940 allowed equal access to both. The arrangement was, in practice, dominated by the Soviets, who controlled the northern, eastern, and western shores. In December 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved. Suddenly, there were 5 Caspian states. 3 of them, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan, were new countries that the year before had not existed as international sovereigns. Each held a portion of the seabed believed to contain billions of barrels of oil. The negotiations took 22 years. In August 2018, the presidents of all 5 countries met in the Kazakh port city of Aktau and signed the Convention on the Legal Status of the Caspian Sea. The convention, after 2 decades of dispute, established that the Caspian was, legally, neither lake nor sea. It defined a 15 nautical mile territorial zone for each state, plus an additional 10-mile exclusive fishing zone. It prohibited foreign military vessels, meaning in practice any non-Caspian state, from entering the body of water. It did not, by design, resolve the question of seabed boundaries in the southern Caspian, where Azerbaijani, Iranian, and Turkmen claims continue to overlap. The convention has, since 2018, been ratified by 4 of the 5 states. Iran has not ratified it. The 2018 framework, in 2026, remains provisionally in force. The military reality on the Caspian predates the legal status by decades. The Russian Caspian Flotilla is, by formal classification, the oldest active naval formation in the Russian armed forces, its lineage traceable to 1772 and the campaigns of Peter the Great. In 2018, the flotilla's main base was moved from Astrakhan to Kaspisk in Dagestan in a strategic relocation that brought its vessels closer to the open water. The flotilla in 2026 includes guided missile corvettes, patrol craft, and at least 4 vessels armed with the Caliber cruise missile system. In October 2015, Russian vessels in the Caspian launched 26 Caliber missiles at targets in Syria, striking from a body of water 1,500 kilometers from the targets across the airspace of Iran and Iraq. It was the first combat use of the Caspian flotilla in modern memory. It demonstrated that from this lake, Russian forces could project precision strikes into the Middle East. Iran maintains on its southern shore the northern naval region of the Islamic Republic of Iran Navy, headquartered at Bandar-e-Anzali. The region operates corvettes, patrol craft, and a domestically built destroyer, the Damavand II, commissioned in 2024 to replace its predecessor, lost in 2018. Kazakhstan operates a small Caspian Sea force from Aktau. Azerbaijan operates a coastal naval force from Baku. Turkmenistan operates patrol vessels from Turkmenbashi. Foreign militaries are, by the 2018 convention, prohibited. No US, NATO, or Chinese vessel may enter the Caspian. The convention was, in this respect, a Russian and Iranian achievement, keeping the world's largest inland sea closed to outside powers. The mechanics of how vessels reach the Caspian explain the geography of its isolation. The body of water has no natural connection to the world's oceans. The Volga River, navigable by inland vessels, connects the Caspian to the rest of European Russia through the Volga-Don Canal, which opened in 1952. The canal is 101 kilometers long and connects the Volga to the Don, which empties into the Sea of Azov, which connects to the Black Sea, which connects through the Bosphorus to the Mediterranean. The route is, by treaty, controlled by Russia. A vessel built in St. Petersburg can, in theory, reach the Caspian. A vessel built in Antwerp cannot. The Caspian is, in this hydrological sense, a Russian inland waterway that happens to be shared with 4 neighbors. Along its shores lie some of the most significant ruined military infrastructure of the late Soviet era. The northeastern coast of Azerbaijan, the area around the village of Zira and the Absheron Peninsula, contains the remains of multiple Soviet-era naval and air installations. To the south, in the Iranian-Azerbaijani border region, sit decommissioned coastal artillery positions. On the Turkmen shore, the harbor of Turkmenbashi, formerly Krasnovodsk, a closed Soviet city until 1991, was the staging point for the Soviet Navy's submarine operations on the Caspian. The submarines themselves, Project 690 training vessels and others, were dismantled in the 1990s. Their pens and dry docks remain. On the small island of Volf, near Baku, the Soviet Navy maintained a major training and weapons testing facility. The island is, in 2026, partially abandoned, with rusted structures and surviving radar installations visible from the air. Around the Azerbaijani town of Neftchala on the southern coast, a Soviet-era anti-submarine warfare base has been left to the elements since 1991. The hangars stand, the aircraft are gone. The oil infrastructure tells a different story. The world's first commercially drilled oil wells were sunk on the Absheron Peninsula near Baku in 1846, 12 years before the Pennsylvania wells, often miscredited with being the first. By the late 19th century, Baku produced more than half of the world's oil. The Nobel brothers, the same family whose fortune funded the Nobel Prize, built their wealth on Baku oil. By the 1940s, the Soviet Union was producing the majority of its petroleum here. Hitler's 1942 Stalingrad campaign was, in significant part, a drive to cut the Soviets off from Baku. In 1949, the Soviet Union built the world's first offshore oil city, Neft Daslari, or Oil Rocks, on a network of steel piers in the Caspian, about 100 kilometers off the Azerbaijani coast. At its peak, Neft Daslari contained a small town of 5,000 workers living on the platforms, with apartment blocks, a movie theater, a bakery, and over 300 kilometers of trestle bridges connecting the wellheads. The structure remains, in 2026, partially active. Much of it has collapsed into the sea. The modern Caspian oil and gas economy is dominated by the projects developed since 1994, when the Azerbaijani government signed the so-called Contract of the Century, a 30-year, $7.4 billion agreement with a consortium led by BP to develop the Azeri, Chirag, Guneshli fields. The contract opened the post-Soviet Caspian to Western capital. It also triggered the construction, between 2003 and 2006, of the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, a 1,768-kilometer oil pipeline running from Azerbaijan, across Georgia, into Turkey, and ending at the Mediterranean port of Ceyhan. The pipeline carries up to 1 million barrels of oil per day. It was designed, in part, specifically to bypass both Russian and Iranian territory. The pipeline economy has not solved the underlying problem. The Caspian is shrinking. The water level fluctuates on multiple timescales. Over the past century, the lake has risen and fallen multiple times. It fell by approximately 3 meters between 1930 and 1977, a decline that exposed thousands of square kilometers of former lakebed, particularly in the shallow northern shelf. It then rose by approximately 2.5 meters between 1977 and 1995, partially flooding settlements that had been built on the dry margins. Since the mid-1990s, the level has resumed falling. The 2023 study, published in the journal Nature Communications, Earth and Environment, projected that under high-emissions climate scenarios, the Caspian could lose between 21 and 34 meters of water level by 2100. The northern Caspian, the shallowest section, averaging only 5 to 6 meters in depth, would, under these projections, disappear entirely. The exposed lakebed would be over 100,000 square kilometers of saline mud and dust. The precedent for what this could look like is 400 kilometers to the east. The Aral Sea, between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, was in 1960 the 4th largest lake on Earth. By 2014, its main basin was effectively dry. The Soviet-era diversion of its feeder rivers, the Amu Darya and the Sir Darya, for cotton irrigation removed the inflow. The lake collapsed in 50 years. The exposed lakebed, now a region called the Aralkum, has become a source of toxic dust storms carrying chemical residues from the lake's former bottom. Communities downwind have experienced elevated rates of respiratory disease, cancer, and infant mortality. If the Caspian declines as projected, the implications include the loss of port functions across all 5 coastal states. The Azerbaijani port of Baku may need to be relocated. The Kazakh port of Aktau may strand. The Russian port of Astrakhan may lose access to the deep water approaches. The northern shallows, which are the sole spawning grounds of multiple commercially important fish species, would be eliminated. The Caspian seal, Pusa caspica, a freshwater seal species found nowhere else on Earth, with a population already reduced from over 1 million in 1993 to approximately 60,000 in 2024, would lose its breeding habitat. The seal pups depend on winter ice cover that, by 2050, may no longer reliably form. The 5 sturgeon species native to the Caspian, beluga, Russian, Persian, stellate, and the smaller ship sturgeon, are all listed as critically endangered or endangered by the IUCN. Their decline preceded the lake's recession. It was caused by overfishing, dam construction on the Volga that blocked spawning migrations, and poaching for the black market caviar trade. Wild beluga catch quotas were reduced to 0 in 2010. The species reproduces in 2026 almost entirely through hatcheries and reintroduction programs. The total wild population has not stabilized. The Volga River, which provides 80% of the Caspian's inflow, is itself a heavily dammed system. The Volga-Kama Cascade, built between the 1932s and 1980s, includes 11 hydroelectric stations and has fundamentally altered the river's flow, sediment transport, and temperature profile. The cascade was built for power generation and inland shipping. It transformed the Volga from a wild river system into a series of reservoirs. The fish that depended on the original Volga and the Caspian fish that depended on the Volga's discharge of sediment and nutrients have not adjusted. On the shores, the human communities continue. Astrakhan, on the Volga Delta, holds a population of around 480,000. It has been a market city for over 1,000 years, capital at various points of the Khazar Khaganate, the Astrakhan Khanate, and the Russian Empire's southern frontier. Today, it is the principal Russian port on the Caspian. Aktau in Kazakhstan was founded in 1963 as a closed Soviet uranium town named Shevchenko. It has a population of around 200,000 in 2026 and is the country's only Caspian deep-water port. Turkmenistan has a population of around 70,000. Anzali, on the Iranian side, around 110,000. Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, holds more than 2.3 million, by some measures the largest city below sea level in the world. These are the cities whose ports, in some climate models, may within decades be inland. The 5 flags around the Caspian, in 2026, fly over harbors. The harbors hold ships. The ships move oil, natural gas, dry cargo, fish, and military hardware across a body of water that has lost approximately 5% of its volume since the early 1990s, and will, on current trends, lose more. The Caspian is, in legal terms, neither a sea nor a lake. It is, in practical terms, the largest enclosed body of water on Earth, and the only one shared by 5 mutually distrusting states, each of which has placed missiles or oil rigs or both upon it. It is also, in 2026, going. Not quickly, not visibly in a single day, but measurably by every satellite altimeter, every coastline survey, every fisheries assessment. The world's largest inland sea is shrinking back from its margins. The ports its empires built around it are watching the water retreat. There may, before the end of this century, no longer be a contested sea here. There may instead be a contested basin, a vast, salt-crusted, dried lakebed. 5 flags, no water. The convention signed in 2018, which took 22 years to negotiate, was about how to share what is here. It said nothing about what to do when it is gone.